Hello, everyone. Very good day to all of you. I hope all of you are safe and well. So let's get started. My name is Vivin Satyan. I have been with Manage Engine for almost 10 years now. I work as a technology consultant. What that means is I talk about technology and I also talk about the product offerings from Manage Engine. Now, the session is going to be about 45 minutes long. And the topic that we're going to be discussing about is going to be around identity and access management. And I'd like to specifically focus on delegation and automation and how Manage Engine can add value in these two areas. That's the idea. Okay. And in case you need the deck or you have some doubts or you'd like to know more about something that I'm talking about, vivin.ks@manageengine.com. That's my email address. Please feel free to shoot out an email. Right. The agenda is going to be pretty simple. We'll take a look at the existing native Active Directory delegation tools that we have given to us by Microsoft. Number two is how do we implement least privilege delegation model? This is where I'll be showing you a live example on how a HR without any rights in Active Directory or Office 365 or Exchange or Google Workspace is going to create accounts belonging to different job roles just by using a simple or just by filling a simple web form. Okay, so we're talking about the user provisioning process being performed by the HR here. Number three is when you talk about identity creation and management, there has to be a checklist in place for uniformity. Okay, and at the same time, if there are some things that you do day in and day out, or let's say you have users being onboarded every week, or there is a requirement of managing your Microsoft 365 licenses and all that. So we will have to think of ways by which we automate some of those identity management tasks by exerting supervision. So that's the whole idea here. It's not like you automate and then sit back. You automate, and at the same time, if it involves crucial actions like disable or delete or whatever it is, how do you exert supervision? So only when the admin says yes, the action will take place in Active Directory or Office 365. How to do that? All right, let's start with delegation here. Okay. Now, going by the definition, delegation, I'm talking about the on-premise delegation here. Now, a higher administrative authority, let's say you have domain admins, schema admins, enterprise admins. So they are higher administrative authorities, so to say, and they delegate actions to other users. Okay? It can be individuals or it can even be groups. Okay? And most of the delegation when it comes to on-prem happens using ACE and ACL. Okay? It can be to a user-based or group-based delegation. Okay, and when you talk about ACE and ACLs, we'll also have to talk about inheritance. Right? Let me quickly show you an example for which I'll have to access my server, my lab here. So I jump to my server. This is a 2012 R2 box. Let's say you're an IT administrator and you want the HR or your help desk technicians to be able to reset password. Okay. Not for all the users, okay? You have multiple OUs, you just want, let's say, the HR to be able to reset password for the USA OU, right? So you just do a right click, you go to delegate control. Well, I'm 100% sure that most of you don't use this. You probably use group-based delegation, but the concept is the same, right? So you just hit next. Probably you add maybe help desk or HTT. So let's just search for help. All right, you have help desk -US. Right now, you have selected the user account. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to give them certain rights, right? So do you want the user to be able to create, delete, or manage accounts? No, not that. But reset password looks like a fit option. So I select reset password, I hit next, and then finish. Okay. Now, the problem with this delegation model is, and the number one problem is inheritance. Okay, because what if the USA OU had, let's say, 5 or 10 OUs inside, and the inheritance is set to true? How are you going to manage that, right? And the problem with this delegation model, it becomes really tiresome for you to understand what rights does the HR have over this USA OU, okay? Or the help desk has over the USA OU. So you'll have to do a right click, you go to properties, security, and let's say Advanced, effective access, you select a user. We are looking for the help desk user here. So check names, help desk USA, okay, okay, view effective access, there you go. All right. Now you have the effective access for the selected user. So I've selected the help desk-US account, and there you have the effective access. What type of permission, and is the access limited by that object or even the child objects? Okay, and the list goes on and on and on, right? So there's no a proper documentation of the access that a specific user has. So this is one obvious advantage we've been living with for almost 2 decades now. Okay, so this is one thing that I wanted to share with you. This is this is true for group-based delegation or any direct form of delegation that you perform within Active Directory. This is the same. Okay, now what about let's say Azure? Is it any different? Well, Azure, the concept of you delegating access to other users is a bit different. You don't use the DOC, or you don't go with group-based delegation here. Instead, for Azure, we have something called roles. Okay, roles, you have all kinds of roles: global admin, application developer, billing admin, and all that. Okay. And you'll have to ensure that you give them the right access, and once they leave the organization, you'll have to revoke the access and all that. The problem with Azure when compared to your on-prem is, okay, on-prem, if you have a third-party tool, you gain some visibility on who, what, when, and where. But whereas when it comes to your Azure portal, okay, people are not that quite sure on who, what, when, and where. Okay, you are 80% sure, but you're not 100% sure. That's the problem. Okay, lack of clarity is something that is still haunting at least some of the administrators. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to drive here is administrators, yes, they can have all the access they want, be it on-prem or Google Workspace or Office 365 or Azure AD portal. Yes, administrators can have everything. But when an administrator is going to delegate actions to other users in your infrastructure, okay, some of the users, okay, need not have server access or need not have the admin portal access. Okay, I hope you will sync with me when I say this, right? Why should the HR need to access your ADUC or the Office 365 admin portal for creating accounts? Okay, why cannot they follow a less intrusive delegation model and still do things? So the point that we'll have to keep in mind is whenever we are trying to delegate actions to other users in your infrastructure, the restrictions have to be precise. Okay, it can be an action-based, user, group, OU, or even attribute-based restrictions. Okay, so you have the HR. You don't want the HR to be able to fill in first name, last name. I mean, any other attribute other than the first name, last name, and maybe title. Okay, just 3 simple attributes among 50 or 60 user attributes that you have, right? So all kinds of restrictions, you should be able to impose all kinds of restrictions on your users, especially when you're delegating actions. Okay, that's the least privilege model that I'm talking about. And using the domain admin account only for actions that require the privilege of that account, because we still see organizations give high privilege credentials for actions that did not require high privilege, right? And never use shared accounts. And last but not the least, if you delegate something, please have the habit of reviewing events and take corrective actions, right? So these are what I call the basic checklist when it comes to on-premise delegation, right? Now, how does Manage Engine come into the picture for implementing least privilege delegation model? Well, I'm going to show you something here. But before that, let me actually show you the actual exercise. Okay, I just want you to take a look at the screen, and the user that I've highlighted is the HR user. Okay, now I'm going to open up the properties of this user. Now, if you see the group membership of this user, you'll be able to understand that this user is just part of the default domain users group. Okay, and we very well know that this domain users or any users belonging to users will not be able to create accounts or will not be able to modify anything. So just basic access, they can log in, access basic resources. Okay. Now, what I want this HR to do is the HR has, I want the HR to be able to create users. Okay. Having said that, I don't want the HR to be able to know what the password is, know what the groups the user is a member of, or I don't want the HR to be able to select the Office 365 licenses for the user. No, I just want the HR to be able to fill a very simple form and then create users. Okay. Of course, the HR is not going to be able to create users directly in AD using ADUC because the HR is just part of domain usage. So what are the options we have? Well, that's when we use a tool like AD Manager Plus. And just to let you know, I've already added HR as a technician in the delegation model of AD Manager Plus. So I'll talk about it a bit later, but just to let you know that the HR is already onboarded as a technician, right? Now, you can see that I'm able to see all the tabs here as an administrator. I have the home tab, the management tab, reports. I have a tab for Office 365, delegation, automation, workflow, backup, and all that. Okay. I'm now going to sign out. Okay. I've now logged in as the admin, so I'm going to sign out. Okay. Please remember that we already have the HR as a part of AD Manager Plus now. Okay. So now let us assume that the HR is accessing AD Manager Plus, okay, from his or her laptop. Now let us see, or let us check whether this HR is able to create users in Active Directory, Office 365 with the right licenses and all that, okay, through AD Manager Plus, not using your ADUC, but using AD Manager Plus. Okay, so this is the Windows username of HR. Right. So I type the username and password, okay, and I hit login. Now, after I log in to the tool, right, you will be able to see that there's a world of a difference, okay? Now, if you notice that the UI has completely transformed into a simple form, okay? I don't have any other option right here other than creating a single user. Okay. Now let's say that I have two users that I recruited today, okay, as a HR. One is a technician and the other one is an administrator. So which means I will have to create accounts for those two users. Okay. And let's say that I've recruited them for the, for my organization's wing in Turkey. Okay. So I go to create a single user. Let's see how the form looks like. All right. Now you see that the template is already loaded. Okay. So even if I try to, even if the HR tries to switch to another template, you'll not be able to do that. Okay. And in this template, there are only 3 fields that are listed here. You just have the first name, last name, and title. And by the way, if you had noticed, title is a mandatory field. Okay, so all these are settings in this template. I'll tell you how to create a template and all that in a short while, but just letting you know that this template only has first name, last name, and title is made mandatory. All right, so now let's try and create accounts here. But before that, let me take you to Active Directory just to show you something. Okay, you see that this is the Turkey OU here, okay, and I have no users. So we're just going to check whether this HR user is able to create accounts. So let's create a technician account and let's name it test tech. Okay, so you'll have to select the right title for this user. Since this is a technician, I'm going to select the title to be IT technician here, right? Now you can have any number of titles. You can have custom titles here: architect, engineer, manager, marketing manager, project manager, sales engineer, support engineer, system administrator, or training. Okay, you can even add your custom titles here. Okay, but the whole idea here is the HR just types in 3 values: first name, last name, and selects the title, which is a mandatory field, and not even the password. Okay, please bear that in mind. Now I hit create. It has successfully created the user. The user is now created in the Turkey OU according to the template. Okay, and the name of the user is test tech. Now let's try and create an admin account. okay, using the same template, right? Test admin. Now we're going to select a different title here. We're going to select the title to be IT administrator, okay? And now hit create. It says, please wait, successfully created, okay? Again, in the Turkey OU. Now it's time for us to check. The proof is in the pudding, they say. So I go to the Turkey OU and I find no users here. Let me quickly refresh. I do a refresh. I have the test tech and the test admin user created using just 3 attributes: first name, last name, and title. Okay. And from the looks of it, you will be able to understand that I have different descriptions already for this user. Okay. For the admin, it says infrastructure management. And for the tech, the description says onboarding employee accounts and password handling. Right. Now let's open up the user's property and see whether we have all the appropriate values populated, including the group membership. So I open up the admin's account first. I see that the telephone number, office description, everything is set. I go to the address. I see that the office address is populated. Now let's go to the group membership, right? I see all the right groups are already in place for this user. Since this is an admin, I have all admin related groups here. Now let's open up the property of the technician. Okay, so I open up technicians. I go to the address. I see everything populated here. I go to member of, and I see that the groups that are relevant for a technician is populated. I don't see any admin groups here. Okay, though I created the user using the same template. Okay, the HR was able to successfully create 2 users belonging to 2 different job roles. Okay, and the users were created not just in AD. If you open up Office 365, you would have a user account for this user in Office 365 with the right license. How did this all happen? But even before we get to that part, I'd like to show you something here. Okay, now that the HR has created 2 users without logging into ADUC or any admin portals, now let us see whether AD Manager Plus maintains any trails of this action, okay, to get the answers for who, what, when, and where. Who created test admin? At what time was the user created? What are the properties of this user? Okay, so I'm now going to sign out. All right, and I'm going to log in as the admin because I need full access. All right, so I go to the delegation tab that you see on the screen. All right, because this is where all the delegation and auditing of your technicians happen. So I go to the delegation tab, right? I go to the audit report section and I select a specific technician. So I'm going to select the HR, okay? And I'd like to know the actions done by the HR in the last 1 hour, okay? All right, and we have 2 events here. So the HR has created 1 user, okay? And you have the timestamp of the action right here, the local timestamp. So the first user was test tech, and the second user was test admin. And both the users were successfully created in this domain, all right? And if you need to know the entire history or the complete property list of that user, you just hit details and you get the properties of test admin right here, okay? All the properties of that user, member of department, container name, manager attribute, everything, right? So let me actually quickly give you a recap here. Delegation avoids 2 things here. Number 1 is this delegation model avoids users from logging into your ADUC or any server for that matter. Number 2 is you need not give this HR access to admin portals for creating accounts or for modifying accounts or for deleting accounts, okay? All you need to do is just add this user as a technician to AD Manager Plus and assign the right roles, assign the right templates, and that's it, okay? They just have to log in, fill in a simple form, and get things done. So you might be wondering, how did this HR create users belonging to two different job roles, one a tech and the other a admin, using one single template? Now, this takes me to the template because I really need to explain how this works, okay? So I go to the management tab and I go to user creation templates, right? Now, in the user creation templates, the template that we used was for the Turkey region, okay? So HR-Turkey-user creation. You see that I also have 5 other templates. None of these templates were listed for my HR, okay? I'll even be able to restrict the HR based on templates, okay, if I want. So when I open up this template, there are 2 important features that I would like to explain. Enable drag and drop and creation rules. But before that, you might have observed something by now. Now, among all the tabs and values that you see on the screen, only the first name, last name, and title is highlighted. And by the way, title is made mandatory. You see a red asterisk sign here, right? All these customizations can be performed using the enable drag and drop option. So basically, if you'd like to fill all the values that you want, but you do not want your users to be able to see any of them except these 3 values, you simply hit enable drag and drop and make other fields silently active, okay? Now, what if you want to make them interactive, in the sense, make them visible for your users using the template? Well, just go ahead and hit make interactive, okay? You don't want that. You'd like to hide this value, but you want this value to be passed to your AD and Office 365. How would you do that? Again, make silently active. You see the option right here. So what happens here is when you make a field silently active, the value in that field gets passed to your AD or Office 365. However, the person using this template will not be able to see the values, right? Now, second question, how did this template enable user creation in 2 different or belonging to 2 different job roles, the admin and the tech? Where's the logic? Where do I actually key in such logics? Well, the logic is right here in the creation rules section. So when you go to creation rules, you can see that I already have 3 rules in place. One for creating a technician account, and the other one for creating an admin account. The third one for creating a database administrator account. Okay, what if I, recruit a database administrator tomorrow? I need to create an account, right? So I have a rule for that. Similarly, you can add any number of rules you want, okay? It can be an application admin. It can be, a solution architect. You just go ahead and add rules. And every rule works based on a condition. Let me explain, okay? Let me just take this rule, for example. So when I expand, you see that the first thing that you'll have to specify is the condition. And the condition for my rule to work is the title of that specific user has to be IT technician, right? What if you want another condition? Well, just hit the plus sign. You can use the or and operators, select a different trigger condition, okay? So let's say the title has to be IT technician, and maybe the department has to be IT, right? Or the city has to be Istanbul or whatever it is, okay, or New York. So if the condition is true, okay, let's say if the HR is going to select the title to be IT technician, which I showed you earlier, then I want certain values to be auto-populated for that user account, okay? And you have a whole bunch of attributes that you can pick and choose from, okay? The list goes on. So you can select a trigger condition here, and based on this trigger condition, in our case, it's the title, you can automatically assign values for that specific user account, okay? So all this can be configured in the template itself. You can customize the template and then give this template to the HR or the help desk technician and ask them to simply log into AD Manager Plus, get things done, okay? No server access, no admin portal access, right? Now, if you take a closer look, so you'll be able to see the name of this template, HR Turkey user creation. So if you go to delegation, right, Now, when I actually edit the user's property, in our case, the HR user, right? So let me edit the HR user here. You will be able to see that I have assigned templates, okay? In fact, just one template, okay? How do I assign multiple templates for this user, just in case? Well, just hit the plus sign. This gives you the list of all the available templates. And by the way, we don't have templates just for user creation. We also have templates for modifying users, okay? Let's say you already have 5,000 users and you want to modify them using a template in one shot. Yes, we'll be able to do that. So you have a template for contact, shared mailbox, linked, room, equipment mailbox, even groups, okay? So I just selected one specific template and I've made this template as default. You see a green tick sign here? That is setting this template as default, okay? And I have assigned a template. I have onboarded my HR. And the most important of all is I have given the HR a role among all the roles that you see here, okay? The role of a super admin, reset password, rename users, unlock users, modifying computers, create users. I've just created a custom role called the HR role, and I've mapped it to the user, as simple as that. Where do you go to create a role? Well, go to the Delegation tab, go to Help Desk Roles right here. You'll have some predefined roles, and you have the custom role that you created, okay? So when you open up this HR role, you will be able to see that among all the checkboxes that you see on the screen, only one checkbox will be selected, and that is creating a single user, okay? Not even creating users in bulk. So it takes its time to load. Just give me a couple of seconds here. All right, there we go. So no reporting function. We have close to 200 reports related to users, passwords, folder permission reports, who has access to what folder and what level of access and all that. No administration capabilities because we are talking about the HR role here, okay? Nothing to do with Microsoft, okay? Now, if you want a user to enable MFA for all the other users using AD Manager, you can just select this checkbox right here, okay? But we're not doing this now, okay? No backup and recovery functionality. So no, okay? Basic user creation rights, that's it, okay? And you save this role and you map it to the HR. So that's how you see that this specific HR has been mapped the HR role already, okay? That's it, okay? Think of any kind of restrictions, you'll be able to impose it on this HR user. Again, let me repeat, this HR is just a regular user in AD. HR user does not have any rights other than domain users, but you very well saw that this HR user was able to create an admin account and a tech account, not just in AD, but an Exchange, in Office 365, and also in Google Workspace if you want, okay? So this is what I call as least privileged delegation model, right? You don't give users direct access to servers, but you still get things done. Now let me move on to the next topic here, which is automation, okay? Now I have another 5 to 10 minutes with you, and I'll not eat up a lot of your time here. I just have one more topic. So if you have any doubts till now, you can make use of the chat box and shoot out questions. If not, you can just continue listening to this second piece, which is automation, right? Now, what does this have to do with identity management or identity and access management? Now, when you do a certain task frequently, okay, as I mentioned earlier, so you have users that are recruited every week or every month, or you have to perform a cleanup of your stale accounts, okay, to make sure that there are no low-hanging fruits. So all that can be automated, okay, because when you do that manually, you are prone to commit mistakes. We are talking about human errors here, okay, leading to unnecessary privilege escalations. And when there are too many manual entries over these years, okay, I'm 100% sure that some of you might have experienced this, okay, data pollution. So you have incorrect syntax, two users belonging to the same department have different formats, be it naming format or logon format or whatever it is. Okay. So when you automate, you have better control of actions, and it is much easier for you to recover from a mistake because you have an audit trail of the automation sequence. Okay. So users were created, license was assigned, users were moved to the right department, they left the organization. So you have an audit trail to see where exactly the problem is in case you have a roadblock, right? Now, let me tell you some of the things that you can automate, okay? Or let me actually show you. So when you're going to create a new automation, we have 4 categories of automation: user, computer, group, and contact. Now, I'm just sticking to the first category here just because we're pressed for time. Okay. Now, the first action that I'd like to select, okay, and by the way, letting you know that we have 20 Active Directory actions that you can automate, including creation of users, okay, deleting users, adding users to a group. And let's say you add users at 10 o'clock to a specific group, and you tell the automation to remove the users from that group at 5, you can even do that, okay? Because users might want to access a resource for which they need a membership in a specific group, but after they're done with their task, the access need to be revoked automatically, okay? So you can add users or remove users from a group. And one very useful requirement is running a custom script. So if you have a script in place that you want to be executed automatically, every Monday at 10 o'clock, you can run a custom script automatically, okay? So disabling users, you name it, you have some of the common tasks related to AD, right? The next link is the tasks related to Office 365 that you can automate, okay? Enabling MFA, disabling MFA, enabling mailbox archive. So let's say when the employees leave, you need to archive, or if you have a requirement of converting to shared mailbox, you'll be able to do that too. Okay? But let me ask you a very simple question here. I just need to know the answer. Now, how many of you listening to this session right now use a hybrid Active Directory setup, in the sense you have your on-prem, but you also have your Office 365 operating in a hybrid mode? How many of you have, or how many of you are operating in a hybrid mode? Can I see a couple of yeses or nos regarding the hybrid Active Directory setup? All right. All right, Brad says yes. Thank you, Brad. Keith, yes. All right. So Steve, yes. All right. So I have lots of yeses here. Oh, Elphus, thank you very much. Yes. Richmond says no. Okay. So it's 6 yeses and 1 no, right? Which means I understand that most of you listening to the session operate in a hybrid mode, okay, which I believe is the way forward. So this application can help you automate the task, not just in Active Directory, but also in your hybrid AD as well. Okay, so just creating mailboxes, assigning licenses, creating Google Workspace accounts and all that. Okay. Now, one thing that I would like to share with you is, okay, when you talk about automation, if I were evaluating a solution for user provisioning, change of department and all that, the number one thing that comes to my mind is this application capable of talking to other business applications? What about the integration aspect? Because let's say when I say create users, okay, I'd like to create users and I want an automation. The first question that comes to my mind is, I have my user information, or I have a new hire information in a SQL database, or I have it in an IT service management software. Okay, I have it in a HR management portal. Can I select the source to be any of those instead of a regular CSV? Okay, what about the integration? The answer is yes. Okay, so AD Manager Plus, if you go to the admin tab and if you go to integrations, it integrates with applications, okay? It integrates with databases. It integrates with HRMS tools. And you can even forward crucial events like user deletion or disabling of users to a central log repository in syslog format, right? So let's say you have service desk, and your service desk technician logs into, create a request for new hire account creation. Okay, so service desk connects to AD Manager Plus via an API, and then depending on the information that you feed in service desk, you can very well map the right template and have the user accounts created in the right department. Okay, so you can automate the process. Number one, while automating the process, if you need to select a different source other than creation of user account, other than a CSV file, you will be able to do that as well. Okay, so that's one thing. The second question related to automation is, will you be able to select will you be able to create your own custom policies? Because it's not just the actions that you see here, right? It's not just create, or it's not reset or disable or whatever it is. You need to have your own custom task and a sequence. That's when you go to policy here. Okay, so if you go to policy, I've already created 2 policies so as to explain things to you, right? Let's take a look at the deprovisioning policy. So when the employees leave the organization, what do you want the application to do? I would like the deprovisioning process to be automated, so that's why I've created a custom policy here. So when I edit the policy, you'll be able to see the sequence. Okay, so whenever the users are leaving the organization, or whenever they've left the organization, I want the user accounts to be first disabled. After 60 days, I want the user accounts to be deleted. Okay, now what if you want to export their mailbox? Okay, so you just hit the plus sign here and you select a different task. Okay, maybe you want to disable or delete their mailbox, right? All right, you select that. So what do you want to do? Disconnect the user's mailbox, delete the user's mailbox, or let's say delete the user's mailbox, or let's say disable the user's mailbox. Okay, you want to select another action after that? Well, go ahead and pick the action that you want. Okay, you can even have a custom script in place. Okay, it can be a PowerShell script or a VB script. Go ahead and automate. Okay, but a very important piece of information that I'd like to share with you is, okay, let me go back to my, right, just give me one quick second, right. All right, let me hide the floating controls. All right, there you go. Okay, now I'd like to give you a very important piece of information or a crucial feature that we have when you talk about automation. Okay, now what you're seeing on the screen right now is a very basic example of automation in theory. Okay. In theory, automation is flawless. It usually does what you want it to do and all that, okay? But what you're going to see next is automation in reality. And not always, but at times, okay? You want it to do something and it does the exact opposite, okay? So the whole idea here is, all I'm trying to say is whenever you're trying to configure an automation, okay, be it for user deletion or disabling accounts or whatever it is, okay, I want you to exert supervision, okay? And for that to happen, all you need to do is, if you go to AD Manager Plus, if you open up AD Manager Plus, let's say you're selecting a very sensitive task like deleting users, okay? And you want to delete users that have never logged on. So you select from one of the reports, never logged on users, okay? You can even add a condition here. So the condition is, they were created before 365 days, but the users have never logged on, okay? I first want AD Manager Plus to be able to generate the report and then delete the users. Now, since delete is a very crucial operation, I always want the checkbox implement business workflow to be selected, okay? Which means that instead of directly deleting the users, this workflow triggers a request to me, who's the admin, and I get notifications. And when I log into the tool, and if I go to the workflow section here, I will be able to see my requests here. I can then approve the request or reject the request or modify the request and then approve it. Okay. So the business workflow configuration is pretty simple. You have a requester. This can be a manual request from a user, or it can be a request from an automation just because you selected the workflow option. It then goes to the reviewer, approver, and only when the executor says yes, the action takes place. Now, you don't want too many levels of approval. This is a bit complicated. Well, you can just have the requester and you can have the executor, and you can add users to the roles as you deem fit from right here. Okay. So these are the two things that I wanted to discuss with you. Number one is, how do you delegate actions to other users without giving them server or admin portal access? Number two is, I want you to automate as many tasks as you deem fit, but at the same time, I want you to exert supervision and then execute automations. Okay. So that's pretty much about it. So I've covered the two topics that I wanted to share with you. What you're seeing on the screen is how a service desk console will look like after you integrate it with AD Manager. You get additional Active Directory options, right? So how does the database integration work? Well, the technician uses a front end, a simple form, and the back end is an Oracle database. AD Manager Plus talks to the database, retrieves user information, automates the process, and then you have the user readily onboarded. Okay, and you can think of any other examples as well. So that's pretty much about it from me. I have a question from Christine, who asks, okay, how do I update the role responsibilities when there are changes? Well, to answer that question, a change in role responsibilities is, we have an option here in the application, okay, that allows you to modify users' property depending on a certain trigger attribute. Let me give you an example. Okay, let's say the user is being transferred from the HR department to maybe the customer success department. Okay, so what we can do here is, there's obviously going to be a change in titles or a change in job roles, right? You can use any one of that as a crucial factor and then define roles or define values based on that factor. It's the exact thing that I showed you in the creation rules when I was operating with a template, right? Similar to creation rules, you have modification rules that you can make use of to modify your existing users. So let's say you have 10 or 20 or 50 accounts that you'd like to modify, you can make use of the modification rules. And let me show you where the modification rules are. Okay, just one quick second. Okay, right. So you go to management, you go to user modification templates, not the creation templates. We're talking about modifying existing users. Okay, not just one user, maybe 5 or 10 or 50 users. Okay, a bulk update kind of a thing. So you just go create a new template. Bear with me for a few seconds while this loads. Right. Now, you see that we are the user modification template, not the creation template. That's why you have modification rules. Okay. So you can go to the modification rule and create a new role, add a condition. Maybe this time when there's a change in department, the user's title is going to change, right? So I can maybe select the title to be HR manager or any relevant title, and then auto assign values here, and then save. And every time when there's a change in department, okay, you can use this modification template to modify the user's property so that it is uniform. In one shot, you modify all the user's property, including group membership and the other relevant properties. Okay, so okay, I think we are running out of time. The Google Workspace tasks. Yes, we do support Google Workspace. Unfortunately, I've not configured Google Workspace in my thing, but if you go to demo.admanagerplus.com, you have the whole demo site fired up with all the values and attributes that you want. You can play with it, or you can simply search Google Workspace and AD Manager Plus. You will get all the actions that we support. Okay, All right. So I have a few more questions. I know I'll definitely get back to you via email, and I do not want to hold you any longer. Thank you very much for your time and patience. This is my email address. All of you have a wonderful day. Okay, you take care.